Okay, so we are live. We are here with Sebastian Ruche, the developer for the data center of Imperial, uh, the proposed data center at Imperial Valley. Sebastian, thank you so much for joining us. We're here with Joseph also.
Yeah, Joseph Carlos, the people out there. Hello, hello, hello. Happy Sunday. Beautiful day out here in the desert.
Cold in here, Imperial Valley.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
it's
yeah,
it's beautiful out here. This is maybe it's the same desert. I'm here in Bermuda
yeah.
Dunes, but
So Sebastian, let's get into the press release, man. You know, update us on what's happening.
so wow. I mean, it's kind of hard to update you without a lot of historical facts. So
Right.
Yeah.
the
Okay.
city, the press release has 40, well, the press release, the lawsuit has 43 exhibits, which allows the public and people to make their own decisions over what happened. What they'll see when they review this, the following. They'll see that there was three applications to the city of Imperial. So the city who says, we just found out about it, that's not accurate. They didn't just find out about it. They actually welcomed us into the city with a data center. That data center was about 1,000 feet from the present one in the county. That data center was on Imperial and Ayton Road, where the old drive-in theater was. It's 95 acres. The city asked us even to put in retail in the front, which we did. So it's kind of ironic that you would make me make changes, spend money, do studies if you had no intentions of doing it. We also spent from day one, you'll see in the emails, the very first, we started getting emails about reclaimed water, which I paid the bills for their consultant that they identified us to. So what ended up happening ultimately at the city of Imperial is hard to tell. I would probably venture to guess it goes something like this. I think the city manager, Dennis Morita, and perhaps Othon, the city planner, and maybe even others, had an idea that when the data center is this big, that it requires more public input. So I guess in their minds, they were thinking one day they're going to be at Starbucks and somebody's going to go like, hey, you know that data center, the one that brought us all that money? Why didn't we get to say something on it? I guess. But the fact is, when I approached them from day one, and you'll see this in well over dozens of emails, my intention was to proceed ministerially. That did not mean that I wouldn't go do environmental reviews. I didn't want CEQA. CEQA is not friendly to California. CEQA has increased housing to California cost and is going to destroy even Imperial, as some of those guys like Luis Olmeto and those people then squeeze you for profits. So
Yeah.
CEQA is not a friend. But here's the point. The point is I have rights. Landowners have rights. Buyers have rights. Those rights are if you buy land that's industrial, which I did, and then in the industrial zone, you're a permitted use, which we are. By the way, the city says, well, it doesn't say data center. Well, it doesn't say big building. It doesn't say hospital. There are a lot of things it doesn't say. It's generic. But I'll tell you what it says. It says dog butcher yard, pig butcher yard. It says, let's see, asphalt plant, concrete asphalt plant, et cetera, lumber yard. I mean, there's all kinds of uses. So clearly a building with no windows and limited retail traffic would fit. So I believe so. They indicated they believe so initially, then they changed their mind. But here's the thing. If they think that the data center gets to be too big and that changes it, they have a problem. The problem is they have a provision in their code that says you can use 60% of the area of a lot. So if you have 10 acres, for example, you could use a 6-acre building. If you have 95 acres, that's a really big building. I was nowhere near that capacity. So I was below their issues. So if you do a checkbox, which is he's a permitted use, by the way, by using what's called their business office and I think it's research facility, which would have fit under, you could say this fits. Okay, so the city of Imperial puts me through torture with 3 different uses, all of which were deemed approved. By the way, how they were deemed approved is city of Imperial has a provision that says if you submit and we don't do anything within 15 days, you're deemed approved. That's how powerful it is. And I've used this before in the past 40 years. But I didn't want to start litigating. I didn't want to push it. If they didn't want me, I was going to go next door. And I left with very friendly terms. My last emails will show that. Their emails to me about my professionalism will show that and explaining it. So then I go over to the county. So now I'm at the county, which, by the way, they got copies of the plans of the county. On June 3rd, I sent them the first copy of the plans with the county. In fact, I told them when we started, I had multiple sites. Okay, so I go over to the county. And then they chase me at the county. Now, if you're out there listening, does that sound like a bully? They chased me to the county. These were people, in my view, could hardly administer their own code. They're going to go over to the county, which, by the way, is doing their job, which is your ministerial use. We're going to approve you. And the city of Imperial, who has 3 deemed approves, got a free pass on my $1 million I spent with them to move on, chases me next door. And then when they chase me next door, it's a little bit worse. They actually have this concerted scheme, which is identified in the complaint, where all of a sudden they all partner together. City of Imperial, IID, and Luis Omerto's group. And then they start pummeling you with the Senator Padilla doing his letters, them doing workshops. Now think about this. I'm in front of them for a year. Nobody says anything to go to the public. Hey, public, do you think we should have this great project? IID, I'm in front of them for a year, 4 studies. Nah, we don't need to do it. Now, all of a sudden, when they do this, they do it solo, individuals, okay? Which is kind of ironic in and of itself. Now, when I deal with that, I'm dealing with this and I'm going like, what is this? Now, their idea is if we put enough pressure on there using the paid operatives of Luis Omerto, some of which are paid, let's be real. Not all, but some are. And they're going to go in there and block a ministerial project. Does this make sense? The county is doing their jobs, which is progressing in a project that makes sense. Publicly, it makes sense. And by the way, legally, you have to approve it because it's ministerial. So they do their job. And now the city of Imperial is going to put pressure on them. Luis Omerto is going to put pressure on them. And freaking IID, the people who have a 69% rate increase, have their biggest project in front of them, they're going to put pressure on them. Freaking amazing to me. Now, when this all happens, it gets even better. The city of Imperial, the people that could hardly administer their own code, they come in and they sue you. Now, to sue you, to create CEQA, they got to say, we're rezoning the property. Well, not. It's industrial. So how will you get there? You get there with lies. You basically take the city manager who signs under oath, a guy who was at least attorney at some part in his life, and he says this requires rezoning. The county doesn't say that. The county, by the way, administers the code. They're saying it doesn't, and they do. So when you get to that, after a while, I'm like, I had enough. I know how to do racketeering. I know how to do civil RICO. I know how to do civil rights. They can get sued. Now, here's the thing. The press release identifies this, obviously maybe not as lengthy, but the complaint supports this, and the county of Imperial is the only people I saw doing their jobs correctly. And they do not need the pressure from these people who are, in my view, near criminals with the stuff they're doing. They're using City Hall at the City of Imperial. They're using public money to run a campaign based on false facts. To me, that should be paid for by the people who think they're correct. And so in my release to the public, I said, if those people will pick up their own bill, which they should, the public should demand it, I'll be happy to withdraw the city. The city shouldn't have the cost. And by the way, the cost for a $10 billion data center is pretty substantial. This will be like the Greenpeace where you break somebody because of the damages. So these people highly miscalculated. There's a lot more to do. On the state case on Monday or Tuesday, we're filing a motion to dismiss it based on the false facts. We're filing a motion to sanction those people, the attorneys, and then the city manager for it. And these people need to wake up. City of Imperial, the county of Imperial, the valley is not a place to play games. You have the potential to have a $10 billion investment, maybe 2 of them, and then get lithium going. This is not a place to play games. They have that little property pimp and all those other people down there. They're doing harm to those people. And look, I'm not the savior, but I love the underdog. I came down there to do business. If they want to litigate, let's litigate. We got to do a 2-step, and I'm all about the 2-step. Let's 2-step this, because this is all bullshit. To me, it's near criminal. It should be investigated by the feds. And then these people need to get out of office. They're using think about IID. IID is sending out press releases, harming me and challenging me and saying things are incorrect. I've been in front of them for over a year with my project. This project will give them about $30 million. The people that raise the rates 69%, the ones that are running up for office, they should be removed from office. They're screwing those people down there, and they got an agenda. That agenda, in my view, has got a lot to do with Z Global. Those people down there, some of them are dirty as shit. They've been manipulating that town for 20 years. And you can look around. Look at the growth they've given you. It's nothing. It's nothing instead of getting something done. Look, the hyperscalers of the world who are right now in amazing money to get this done, they're not here to play games. They didn't believe in that area. I did. And I'm the guy who spent the money. I'm the guy who made the application. I'm the guy who followed the law. And I even gave Imperial La Paz when I started. I thought, well, they're lost, but so be it. Let me go next door. And by the way, with them, I spent at least $1 million going back and forth with studies. So the emails prove it. Anybody wants to see it, read the emails. Not that bullshit that's online with these people going like, oh, the air does this and that. Read the emails and protect your community, because your community can have some really serious investment. I'm here to fight. They want to do a two-step, I'll dance, because I think it's complete bullshit what I've seen down there. So I guess
think we should post. I think we should post that link of the combined exhibits that includes all those emails. Back and forth.
We should, but there's also some questions already. Rob Hollinger says, should the burden of making the public aware be on the city, county, or the developer, or both?
What is the awareness that we're talking about? If you have a ministerial approval, you submit it, and there's nothing for the public. That's the law in California. I didn't invent it, but that's the law. There's nothing that says that we have to all of a sudden involve everybody. That's CEQA. CEQA doesn't apply if you're exempt. So now, look, let's be real. If the public wants to say a city says, hey, we got this project, we want to notify the public, they could do that, and that's fine. The developer could do that too. But my view was, look at what we got right now. We got misinformation. We got public people doing bad things. And I saw this coming, and I was trying to avoid it. But, there is, think about this. When you look at the ministerial part of this, there's nothing that says we have to hold a public hearing for this. So, but that's on them. Look, the city Imperial didn't come to me and say, look, we like your project, but we think we should notify the public. Okay, well then notify the public. By the way, look at my emails. I told them, if you're concerned that this use isn't similar to the other one, there's something called a similarity of use. They wouldn't do it. That would have put me in front of the planning commission. You'd have had notice. Okay. Instead, what happened here was the project moved along ministerially, and then all of a sudden I got sandbagged with this trifecta of these people coming together over hoopla. And by the way, all the environmental stuff that you're hearing is all bullshit, because all they're doing is misinforming the public about the environment and, or of course, the public benefit on the dollars.
Hector Cervantes says, do you think nonprofits are trying to stop the project?
Well, the Luis Omertos group, CBC, they are, yeah. But
Olmedo.
Here's what Olmedo, excuse me. Here's what the public has to understand. The environmentalists for years in California, it's changed recently, have used the California laws to basically extort money from the developers. So what they do is they sue, and then what they do is they take money to dismiss the lawsuit, and then the courts say, well, this is a private deal that's there. Now think about that. Doesn't look really private to me, because the government is there. That the government is the one that should impose fees on you. Under the law, they could only impose proportional fees. So for example, if I have a 1 mile impact on a road, I fix the 1 mile. If they ask me to fix 10, that's not proportional. That would be a takings. Now, if some environmental group comes up and sues you and says, well, there's poor people here, so we want to take the money, we're going to distribute it to the poor. And then what they do is they send it to their home offices and nobody sees it. That's not proportional. So that's like asking them to become your taxpayer, and they're your taxpayer, by the way, tax collector, but they're not the government. So in 2022, California changed that. Now this stuff involves what's called state action. The state is involved. I believe the people that litigate these haven't brought that forward in case law. I am prepared to do it. So in my view, if you're an environmental group and you try to settle, that's state action. So now that's not across the board. There's definitely some environmental things that are issues. I get it, but that's not what happened. CEQA was abused because it was used to delay and stifle projects as a whole. That's why California amended it 6 months ago, last summer. And so that's no friends of the people of Imperial. And here's the other reason. This project was designed environmentally from day one. I have over a dozen studies. They're all available on our website. You can see them. Biological, we have health risk assessments, we have air studies. We're now even doing a sound study, the last thing that somebody had suggested. So this is not about the environment, it's about the lay. If you force CEQA on a project that's ministerial, you've just changed the law. How'd you do this?
Right.
How'd you do this? This has been the law for 50 years. So you get to do this, and that's what it is. The idea that they're going to come out and yell at these meetings and stifle, look, give me facts. I'll be happy to debate it with any of them. Show me some facts about the errors that are there and all the studies. I haven't seen a study from anybody, by the way. City of Imperial didn't do any. I paid for all of them, and all of them were good. There was no issues with any of them. Traffic was very low. The air qualities was very minimal. These are only backup generators. There was no issues with the batteries. Those were done with 8-inch walls around it, so they were safe from fire. The building itself is self-contained. I mean, I don't know what you get there. You get minimal traffic. You have no environmental impact. By the way, the electricity paid money to the IID, and by the way, the bill yearly is about $250 million. It's $1 billion every 4 years. They make somewhere between 22 to 30 million is our calculations. And the electricity that's brought in, that's the green energy that you got there. So if you bring in a developer 330 megawatts, then what happens? And all of a sudden people want to produce energy to sell to you. It just helps that area. Now look, it's not the savings. I get the idea that in the past, solar haven't done well or other things, but that's not really the issue. The issue is this does something, and it's big. And then you get another one, and then you get the geothermal, and then you get the lithium, and then it helps. All these things are pieces. By the way, our taxes for that area within the first 2 years was about 100 million, and then after that was about 30 billion a year. That area getting that kind of money and me having to deal with this kind of hysteria is crazy, especially since we environmentally protected everything. I'll explain ministerial in detail. Sure, I get that. So what ministerial is, which I fought for 40 years and always used it, is where you have check boxes. So for example, in my case, you go through the following. First, you determine, is this a permitted use? Because some uses are permitted, some are not. If it's not, you're in the CEQA. If it's permitted, you check that box. That's not the end. Then you check the other box. What's the minimum lot area? Well, you got 75 acres. That's a check. Then you look at the setbacks. Well, the side setbacks, for example, in the industrial zone were like 10. I gave like 115, check. Now rear setbacks, check. You have sewer, you have water, check, check, check. And when you're done, if you check all the boxes, you're there. One of the cases we cited was a case where they had not 1 million square feet, 2 million square feet. It was one of these Amazon warehouses. The court approved it ministerially. They had 125 check boxes they checked. So what that does is that lets you have more assurance that your project goes forward. If your project needs a rezoning or conditional use permit, which is what they're claiming, which is BS, then you fit into discretionary, meaning the government could say yes or say no. Then a lot of people protest, you can say yes or no. I have followed the ones online that occurred where they were denied. A lot of them were rezonings, which I have no problem with. I get it. You just picked the wrong site. I didn't. This land that we have now was zoned industrial for, I don't know, about 45 years, some of it 25 years. The one I did at the Imperial was zoned industrial for forever. So you went in with the expectation that these were permitted, and we had conversations that were that way too. So, and by the way, ministerial doesn't mean unregulated. You still have to comply with everything, your building and all your other requirements, your air has to get reviewed and monitored. You still have to do everything. And in our case, we went above board with our studies. We did even more. So it doesn't mean unregulated. What it means is I don't get extorted by Louise Almedo, which, I don't want to get into that because don't I have a choice to pick the right land? I mean, I did. Yeah. I picked the right land. By the way, I picked 3 industrial sites that were combined. It was about 12 pieces all put together. So I have a right to do that and to go in ministerially. That's my right. And if somebody wants to strip it away the way that a city of Imperial thinks so, that's a taking of my right. By the way, it impacts me on due process, equal protection, takings, and a bunch of other rights.
Rob Hollinger says, how are you accounting for several other communities across the country?
Rob, that's a great question. First, if you look at them, you will see that a majority are ones that have rezoning. Like I just said, rezonings, you have every right to say no. I wouldn't challenge that. That's not my situation. That's one. Number two, also look at what you see. For example, in Northern Virginia, they have about 800 of them. In Northern Virginia, the data centers pay close to $1 billion in taxes collectively a year. The people there have had too much, and I agree, it's just excessive. So they're saying no. You'll have some in Arizona, but when you look, you'll see the community has probably about 70 or 80 of them. It's not one. How many do we have in Imperial County? I've had 0. We have 0. So it's not the same thing. But I do get it. I do get that. But also the other problem is that data centers right now are of a national priority. We're in competition with China. So we have executive orders that say they're a priority. But some of them are going to do it, and some of them may have picked bad sites. I did not. I picked an industrial site that was there for 45 years.
Jake Tyson says you are skirting CEQA. That is California law.
Yeah, really. Well, Jake doesn't understand ministerial. And by the way, I put my money where my mouth is. I'm going to court on it because I'm comfortable I am.
Jake Tyson also says AI
Yeah.
data centers and data centers are two different beasts, and you
Yeah,
know.
that's amazing. So Jake is right now requoting what the city of Imperial did. So the city of Imperial, a data center is not a data center. Amazing. Who decides that? The city of Imperial? No, it's the county. The county decided a data center is a data center. Is a data center. The idea that one of them is different, how did they come up with this? They make it up. So a data center is not this. And by the way, the county has already determined this. That was done September 4th. That's already in place.
Jake Tyson also says 5 million gallons of water a day has no environmental impact on the desert.
We're not using 5 million gallons of water, Jake. You're misquoting it. What we're using is 750,000 gallons. What we were agreeing to was to treat 6 million gallons, 4 million from El Centro, 2 million from the city of Imperial. Out of that, we were using 12.5%, and we were going to send 5.25 million gallons to the Salton Sea that was going to be reclaimed water. That's an environmental benefit, not an environmental detriment.
Okay, I don't know if you're gonna be aware of this. Robbie J says, please look up California Palm Addiction Recovery Center versus Department of Justice is public for
Sure.
viewing. I guess
Yeah,
that's
absolutely. So what the California Palms Addiction Recovery Center, that's me. I ran a recovery center for 6 years where we treated veterans from addiction. We were very, very successful. Videos are available online. You could see them. The government came in to bother us, and that's how I've had my strength over the years. I could handle the U.S. government. I could handle the Justice Department. I could handle the FBI. And by the way, for Robbie, I won that case. And then the Sixth Circuit ruled in my favor to release things a month ago. And on Friday, the federal judge ordered the government to meet with me so they can give me my affidavit. I'm no schlub. I can handle things that are out there. And by the way, you could thank me for saving veterans. I get texts all the time for what I did for the veterans that were there.
Doug Russell says, hey, we have 75 acres we want to sell you, and it's a perfect spot for this project.
Doug, I'd be happy to look at it. The problem is right now I can't keep changing the property. This is now, I did 3 different go-rounds with the city of Imperial, and now I'm at the county site. I can't keep switching just because of other stuff, but I'd be happy to look at it for something in the future. Right now, we've spent enough money and enough time to get this done. Had Imperial been honest and come to us up front and say, look, we don't want it, we'd have moved.
Jake Tyson says, it's in court because the Planning Commission mislabeled this ministerial, not because you say it is.
Yeah, well, Jake, you say that too, so I don't agree with you. The fact is you're misquoting stuff. The fact is the planning director is the one that makes the decision for the county, and his letter of September 4th says it's ministerial.
Kelly Jordan says, it seems like you found the site to avoid discretionary review.
Kelly, you're correct. I found multiple sites to avoid discretionary review. I didn't want discretionary review. It doesn't do well. It goes into problems, but the public can't change that fact. Well, I'm in a contract, Jake, and I have all the time in the world. So how does that help you, my friend?
Okay, then Kelly, let's see. Kelly Jordan says, can you tell us the difference between a data center and an AI data factory?
Kelly, that's something that the city of Imperial's attorney wants to make up. The problem is the county doesn't agree. A data center is a data center. But the truth is, if you look back in time, about say 10 years ago, you had cloud computing. They were smaller in size. When you got to ChatGPT about 3 years ago, the data centers increased in their electricity demands. This one here is an AI data center. So it's larger and the rest, but larger doesn't change it. For example, if you said manufacturing warehouse and then you said Amazon manufacturing warehouse, is that not a manufacturing warehouse? It's the same thing. If you said little hospital, big hospital, per code, it's a hospital. So this is a distinction without a purpose. It's just somebody else trying to get a different way in.
Rob Hollinger says, I'm the one shouting about noise. Please show any kind of data where this one will not produce low-level noise.
Rob, what we've done is we've ordered a noise study. What I know from the hyperscalers is that the noise level, remember, it's inside the building. Inside the building, they're noisy at certain places because I've been there before. But on the outside, I don't believe so. But I believe the decibel level at the county is 60 decibels, and I think we more than comply with that. What we had offered for the public next door, and we have some videos of it, we offered very large walls, 10 feet instead of, say, 6, which are required by the county. And some of them right now, you have wood fences. So that, the landscaping, and the other requirements are there. Look, in my opinion, this project isn't one that you deal with on, one minute. This is going to go on for a long time. And so it has to be monitored by the county. And so these are things that are there for the long-term future. However, we decided to pay for a noise study. What we're finding is that there is railroad traffic noise, there's airport traffic noise, and it's not really that it's that quiet there. But I'm not skirting that. The generators, some of the people said about the generators, they're inside a building, so it's not like it's outside. I have a few videos that show you what it's like outside, and I don't think it's anything like I'm hearing. But look, to be specific, is we've ordered a noise study. I'm assuming that'll take a week or two, and we'll put it online for people to see, and then they can challenge it.
I'd like to add the comment to that noise. I live farther away from the tracks in El Centro, and I hear it every day in the morning, 1 a.m.
For Raphael's comment about the current ownership, Raphael, again, these are statements that people keep making, but they're not reading what we're writing. The fact is, the code in the county allows you to be conditioned on things. The condition is that once before they do their last certification, will be in the same name. This has already been addressed. And by the way, they've already agreed to the condition. So how this helps in the end.
Why should a community?
Kelly, it's a good comment. I get it. That's a good comment. Some reduced review. We're doing that right now, aren't we? We're reviewing it. People are standing up speaking it. We're releasing the studies. You're getting the review. The question is, should you change the law midstream with it? Well, California's had ministerial for over 50 years, to my knowledge, maybe 60. So it's not there. But I believe you're having the review right now. You're doing it right now with questioning me.
Jake Tyson says, what formal analysis was performed to evaluate how converting this site from active agriculture to industrial use affects regional water flows and salton sea?
Well, Jake, you have a misstatement in your question. We are not converting anything. This has been converted 45 years ago. It's industrial land, my friend. It's industrial. Mm-hmm. It's been that way for 45 years. Some of it 25 years. We're not converting anything.
Seems like Jake doesn't really know the information that's.
Well, Jake is spewing out the standard stuff, which I like it. I'd rather address Jake than not. Keep questioning me.
Jake says, can you identify the specific environmental analysis, mitigation measures, or enforceable conditions that would not be required if this project proceeds under a ministerial exemption?
Jake, that's a good question. There's a whole bunch of things that are there. So what we did is, by the way, to answer your question is, when you get to your exempt ministerially, you don't have no CEQA. There is no CEQA. There's nothing left. It's only the other rules that apply. And in our case, there are rules. There's the air permits, which are monitored separately. For example, the noise that we regulated by the county. There's the building size and all those other things. There's all those items. But there's definitely going to be some that would not be in CEQA. The problem with CEQA is not what it wants to do environmentally. The problem with CEQA is that CEQA is used to delay projects. That's why it was amended. And by delaying projects, you abuse them, and then sometimes you either extort money or the people move on. Because we want to know exactly what the rules are. That's why you pick ministerial sites.
Kelly says, how were the air quality impacts from backup generators evaluated if the project is treated as ministerial and exempt from environmental review?
So Kelly, the backup generators, they're not exempt because it's ministerial. They still have the other part, which is APCD, the Air Pollution Control District regulations. In there, we applied. They're on site. You can see them online. Very lengthy application. And then we also had the PhD that I hired to do this, their studies. Separate of that, they asked us for a health risk assessment, which we did. It cost me $60,000, and we provided that. And then they asked us for another one recently. So it's not exempt. And then the other thing is, remember, the air permits are regulated going into the future. So when they issue them, they actually come out and monitor it. So they come in, they do yearly inspections and all that. So the air permits aren't something that gets bypassed all that way at all.
Jake
Joseph Meadows
Tyson,
asking another question.
you want to read it, Joseph?
If there is no difference between traditional data center and AI data center, can you affirm whether this project's power density, cooling load, and water demand and backup generation capacity are identical to a conventional enterprise data center?
Well, Jake, again, you keep pressing the same point, which is a non-issue. You're going to lose that in court because data centers are data centers. There's nothing that distinguishes one from the other one. That's a distinction I was trying to put together. Well, that's a really good question. I'm suing them individually because they're the ones who did the harm. By the way, I've already agreed publicly, and I'll do it right now. I'll be happy to dismiss the city. It's the people that were doing the harm. It's not the government itself. It's the people running the government that were doing the harm. That's why they're sued individually. They're the ones that should be picking up the bill. There should be accountability for their actions.
Yeah.
Rob Hollinger says, I'd like to know if there are issues with low noise issues. Will there be a path for impacted people to take?
You know, Rob, I keep seeing something about some low frequency noise that some people have published. I don't really know much about it. I've asked for the the noise study to be done. And to answer your question is yes. Nothing goes away in the future. So for example, if there's impacts for the neighbors, I mean, this is a $10 billion project and nobody's going to want people to be unhappy there. And there's always there. So you can purchase an air easement, a noise easement. You could do a higher part on the walls, etc. That's all stuff to happen in the future that we'll know. I mean, the noise study in comparison to the other ones is really one that you have to analyze when it's built, in my opinion, and then you have to do things to mitigate it.
Why didn't your HRA include tests for the 132 emergency backup generators for emergency operational use?
Well, again, Jake, what it did is it analyzed them, and you're correct. I can see that you really dig into it. It analyzed them for when they're done at testing. So here's how that works. At testing in the United States, in the county and in the state, you have when you have backup generators, you're limited to 100 hours for testing. We went to 34 hours per year. That's why that article that somebody put together about hundreds of thousands of hours was a complete joke. So we went to 34 hours. What we actually did is one engine tested per hour for 12 hours per day. That's maximum. What I'm being told is the maximum for these engines will be 30 minutes per month, which ends up being about 6 hours per year, which ends up being about 6,000 hours. So to answer his question about that, it's a good question, is he's asking me why I'm following the law. The people that I hired to do this, the PhD, he said it was exempt on the emergency use, which, by the way, when you look at the emergency use on the S line, what is it likely per year? I don't know, 2.5 hours. It's pretty low numbers.
Okay, Kelly Jordan says, would you still support this project under a full CEQA review?
No, Kelly, no. This project won't happen with CEQA review. That's extortion. That's not going to happen. We have our rights. We have rights. We bought it ministerially. It is ministerially. It's approved ministerially, and we wouldn't go CEQA. CEQA's no friend. Look at the environmental stuff. If you think one of the environmental things should be expanded, like the other questions, we'll be happy to add those, just like we're adding noise. It wasn't required, but we're doing it. We'll be happy to do the environmental stuff, but CEQA's no friend to a developer. And the data center people, the hyperscalers, they're not going to play with California. They're going to be like Elon. They left California, and they went to Texas, who's getting all the growth. I mean, why don't we put some jobs down there? By the way, the 1,688 jobs makes us the largest private employer for at least 2 years during construction. Private. Now, if you look at what's the public included, which is the county and the state, I think they'd be larger. We'd be the third largest. That's the stuff that the people down there should be looking at.
What specific environmental or infrastructure decisions did the county not have discretion over when approving this project?
Specific environments not have discretion. Well, Jake, as I've said repeatedly, The county's approval was ministerial. There was no discretion on anything. You have to approve it ministerial. Ministerial doesn't mean it's zero. You still have check boxes. Like, for example, your lot merger. All you're doing is merging the lines. It's a checkbox. If you look at it, I believe it's 8 or 9 items. You comply with those items, you're deemed approved. That's how it works. I'm not aware of any that are discretionary for the county. The county wants us, well, I'll give you an example. One of the ones the county asked me to do was an economic analysis. I paid $30,000 for it. It hasn't been released yet. That wasn't required by anything I saw. They asked me for it and I did it. And if they ask me for other stuff, I'll do it. Jake, if you ask me for my environmental stuff that we're not doing, I'll do it. I'm not here to hide it. This project was environmentally sound from the start. We'll be happy to do it and comply. And so, but the difference is we're not going to do it through secret, through some method that deprives us of our rights.
Tom Hollinger is referring back to his question about noise.
Low noise issues.
Yeah, the recourse of any impacted by noise.
Rob, I'm not skirting it. I don't have an answer for you because I don't know. What I did is I went to the hyperscalers and I said, give me some studies on this on noise. What we did is, as I said now about 3 times, we went out there and ordered noise studies so we can have that for you. And as I also already said to you, is this will have to be something that will be decided later. Look, I'm not skirting it by deciding it later because I don't know what it would be like there. I see some places people say that there's going to be issues for noise, and I see some places where it says it's not. I have videos online that say it's not. I don't really know specifically. I've toured data centers. Inside there, in some places in the rooms, it's very loud. It sounds like a bunch of bees. But outside of it, I don't hear the noise. And by the way, keep in mind, when you're hearing this, it depends on how they do the buildings. Like, for example, some of them have different cooling on top. Some of them have the cooling inside. Some of them, by the way, the ones with noise, they have generators. And most of the ones that are out there are using diesel generators, not in our case, like natural gas generators. So I'm not skirting the question.
Okay, Kelly says, can you identify a single instance where community feedback led you to pause, revise, or reconsider an aspect of this project?
Well, Kelly, you have to remember, and with due respect to me, if you read my complaints, some of the community issues is contrived. These are paid operatives, I believe, tied to Luis Olmedo. Now, I don't know about you personally, but some of it is. So that's not really anything that's going to ask me to pause with it. I just have to address it. The fact is, either I have rights or I don't. If I have rights ministerially, I proceed. If I don't, then I don't. So you're asking me like there's something to pause. Think about this. This land is zone industrial in the county. And if you look at the plan that Imperial has for this, someday when they annex it, it's zone industrial too. Their highest use. So what are we saying? We're saying we have industrial, but if we come and attack you, you got to do it differently. By the way, let's look at data centers for a minute. If we compare raw land to data centers, oh yeah, it's much more. But that's not the issue. Is you have different uses within these zones that you have out there, the industrial zones. Some of those uses include some really hideous uses. Now, how do you do that with it? For example, you have a concrete plant. You ever see those? They're like 80 feet in the air. The asphalt plant, about 80 feet in the air. By the way, the people I'm buying this from, they own concrete and asphalt plants. Ultimately that could have been a use. So those are the things that are there. But, my comment to you, Kelly, is go ahead and shoot me environmental stuff. We'll be happy to do more if we haven't done everything already.
Robbie G says, you're saying that because you're going to make money. You don't live within this vicinity.
Well, Robbie, that's a true statement. I actually live in the Imperial District up here in Bermuda Dunes, and I will make money, but I'm also the only guy spending money down there, my friend. So you have jobs that could be there because I'm the guy spending money. The data centers didn't do that. So, and by the way, what is wrong with that? You're coming down there and you're spending money to produce impact for the people down there. And that's a bad guy. And I pick ministerial land, and that's a bad guy. I pick the ones in the city of Imperial, and I leave professionally after 3 terms, and I'm a bad guy. I deal with IID. They try to shut me down because of Z Global, and I challenge it, and I'm a bad guy. I mean, if this is the way it's going to be done, then you're going to have no growth.
Hollinger says, at the end of the day, are you contracted by Google or is this a proposal?
That's between me and Google, my friend. I'm not at liberty to tell you that. But hyperscalers will take that area for sure, all of them. And I knew that going in. So I'm the one who spent the money. But it's not an issue, is there? I can tell you well, this, they don't like what they're seeing down there. They think the area, when I started, they thought the area had some serious problems. There was a lot of history about the Z Global and other things. And that's not good for the area. And look, my area wasn't to get in there and start getting into all the stuff that I see that's terrible. It came to my doorstep and I was sued, and now I'm releasing it, and I'm going to continue to release it.
What was the reason the county labeled this ministerial when it was clearly discretionary?
Well, Jake, you're clearly, come on. I mean, like all of a sudden, where's your quotations? It's ministerial from day one. It's an industrial land, and all you got to do is check the boxes.
Mr. Ruche, according to Tyson, says, you don't own the land. Explain to me how you have rights.
Jake, you have contract, which means you're the equitable owner. You put down hard money, you have rights. So, you know, what you should do, Jake, is focus on true things. If you're a true environmentalist, which I doubt, and you have issues with the environment, make those and try to win on those points. All you're doing is spinning around the other stuff. To me, and I don't know this, but you look like one of those Almedo operatives, which I think is probably accurate because Jake is usually the one that's spewing stuff. A lot of it inaccurate. I'll be happy to debate the case law on this.
Hector says, will any building be built use today's standards or standards from a few years ago? I think we all know that's going to be.
Hector, this building is very expensive. It obviously will go with all the current building codes, and we're looking to use union labor, etc. So everything will be standard. It's a pretty expensive building.
Kelly Jordan says, you've described public concern as emotional and hysterical, yet many questions raised involve technical issues like air quality, water supply, grid reliability, and emergency response. Which of those concerns do you believe are not valid?
No, Kelly, I would agree with you. Those are all valid. Those are all being addressed, even ministerial. The air quality is done by APCD. The water quality, we have multiple studies that were done. We're doing reclaimed water. The grid reliability, we have 4 studies from IID that says that it's permissible and they can do it and they get public money. And I don't know what you mean by emergency response. If that's what I'm assuming, you're talking about the batteries, and that's being reviewed by the fire department. My opinion, let the people do their jobs that you've hired in these places. That they're supposed to do the jobs. I think they're going to be better at this than somebody on the other end that's looking for something else.
You want to read that, Joseph?
Yeah, CEQA applies even to the projects that are fully privately funded. Can you point to the finding that exempted this project from environmental review?
Jake keeps going back to the same question. September 4th, the county, which is the authority on this, has a letter that says it's a permitted use. That's it. Now, when you keep talking about privately funded, not publicly funded, I don't know. I get that, but that's not the issue. The issue is it's ministerial. It's already been decided. Now, we'll decide it in the courts too, because you're barking up the wrong tree. What's really unfortunate is that the city of Imperial put together is saying that this project required rezoning. It's industrial. And it's the M1 and the M2. So there's their light and then their medium. I don't know what's left after that. So those are both permissible for all the uses that are there. Those were lies, and that's why probably by Tuesday we'll be filing our motion for judgment on the pleadings. It's already been prepared because we had to give the other side notice to see if they wanted to change it. Changed it the first time, they came with an amendment. It's just as bad as the first one. So that'll be filed in a few days, and then we'll go before the judge.
You want to read that again?
Yeah. So what if Google never comes and just lays an empty shell? You're not willing to prove to us that you have Google lined up wanting to come in.
Robbie, I don't have to prove anything to you. I don't know who you are. I have to prove stuff to myself. I'm the guy that's spending the money to get it there. And by the way, if it gets approved and they don't show up, you get the empty land that you guys are desiring.
Can you point to the CEQA finding in the public record that supports treating this approval as ministerial?
Dave, how many times I got to tell you? There's a letter. Am I allowed to share something here? Can I share it?
Yeah, we can present. Yeah, there's a button that says
present.
present.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh.
So So let's cover this from Mr. Jake. Is it this red thing? No, that's leave.
No.
There's a little screen with the plus on it.
Yeah, with the plus on it.
Okay, image. Okay, so let me go find the image for Mr. Jake. Oh, by the way, I'm thinking, was this inside one of the filings?
Because I have the exhibits. You want me to pull up the exhibits?
No, I'll find it. I'll find it. I think it was in one of the filings, but you know, I'll show them. All right. So give me a second.
If you want, also you could email it to me, and then I'll share it if you're having trouble.
Well, if it works on sharing, we'll try that. And there's so many. Oh wow. You got me. Okay, give me a second. I'll find it.
Thank you, everybody, for watching. If you guys have any more questions, right now we're going to be pulling that up for Jake. That way he can see.
Give me a second here. Oh, I found this troubling. There's nothing in my email bin. That's new. All right. Maybe something happened to that. Okay, so I think it was 9:04. Okay. Oh, wait. Well, first off, we have this. Wow, this is not good. Am I at the right place? I lost some of my files. I'll have to find it. I'm sorry. There's a letter, September 4th. I'm sorry. I can't seem to find it. That looked really troubling to me.
I mean, I think I could find it, maybe.
Yeah. If I find it, I'll send it out. I mean, there's other ways for me to search for it. Okay. So am I still sharing or am I off?
Well, no, you're not sharing anything yet right now. Nothing is being shared.
So there's a letter September 4th by the county. They determined it to be ministerial.
Okay. Is that in the exhibit? Let me see here.
I don't remember if it was. I don't think so because I wasn't covering that as much that I recall. I was really covering the history of all the other things.
The emails and stuff.
It's covered in the lawsuit repeatedly. They even referenced the September 4th letter.
Okay. Okay, we could pull that up maybe in another, if we do another live stream.
No, I love this. I love debating with Jake and the others. Let's do this more often.
Let me see. Do you have more questions here? Let me see. Do you believe residents should have input? Okay. So Kelly says, do you believe residents should have input before approvals are granted or only after decisions are made?
Well, which kind, Kelly? Are you talking about discretionary ones? Or are you talking about ministerial ones?
Yeah. This is that's a good question actually. Right. But yeah, like discretionary or ministerial, right? Because that's also important. Let's see here. Erica Sanchez says, I have 64 acres available in Island. Hit me up.
Erica, I appreciate that. What's it zoned?
Is it ministerial or discretionary?
Well, what you're going to find in the county, by the way, county has very little industrial land. It's not a lot. It's very little.
So Rob says, just because you can doesn't mean you should. I tell my engineers this all the time.
That's beautiful, Rob. I appreciate it. Well, you're not the one who's here spending money to build a project in the area. So that's your right. I mean, again, that's your view. I have rights too.
Oh, Erica says that her land has water rights. Ready to go.
But I'm assuming, Erica, it's probably agricultural, which would require rezoning, and then, it wouldn't happen.
Okay, so Kelly says, how should our community interpret your statement that the site was chosen to avoid public scrutiny, while you simultaneously ask us to trust your promises?
No, you don't have to trust me. You trust the people that are regulating it. They're the ones that are going to impose requirements.
Jake says, include the CE exemption reason that is legally required when given ministerial exemption. I don't know what he means.
Again, it was ministerial. The grading permit was exempted because the grading plan complied with the grading rules.
Yeah.
That's it.
So, just to kind of piggyback off of that, maybe bringing more understanding to the situation of ministerial. A ministerial means that the county already did like an environmental review of their own, right? And said,
No,
okay,
no, 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 no. We need to stop.
okay,
CEQA doesn't apply. It doesn't apply.
right,
What they did is a review to see if you fit. Now, that doesn't mean you're unregulated. They determined that it complies within their code. And that was the September 4th letter.
right. Well, what I'm saying is that the county or the city says, okay, then this is what could potentially be built here, like
Correct.
ministerially.
So here's what happens. Everybody, including all the homes that Jake and everybody else owns
Yeah.
or is renting on, those homes have a zone. That zone you could look up to see what are permitted within that zone. You could also look up to see what is conditional. You could look up to see what is prohibited.
Yeah.
Now, so when you look up the zone in this case, you determined data centers was one of the ones that was permitted. You also determined that the substations were permitted, and then you concluded that the backup generators and the batteries would be ancillary to that because they support that use. That was concluded with the county. When I started with the city of Imperial, I reviewed their ordinance. Their ordinance was industrial and commercial. The land was split, by the way, the very thing they're complaining you can't do. And in the industrial, they had a lot of uses. They were more generic than they were at the county. The county's uses was about over 100 of them that are permitted, and then some are conditional. So I looked at them. I felt we fit. I saw this requirement about 15 days for approval, and I went in and moved that way. I did a project in Long Beach. If you've ever been up there, it's called Second and PCH.
Yeah.
Over 10 plus years ago. Beautiful project. It's a shopping center. It was approved ministerially. It's 277,000 square feet. It was approved because it complied. So, this whole thing about people not liking that, well, let's see. It's in the zone that's permitted, and you comply with all the other requirements, the minimum lot acreage and the setbacks and everything else. Then from a businessman, you can move forward. And it doesn't get shifted because other people have different ideas. I mean, think about the ideas that are tossed at me. Some of them are like, well, I feel this way. And what I do is I tell people not to do what you should do. Why would you do that? It's industrially zoned land. It has the electricity for it, has the water for it, has the air for it. Sure, some houses are nearby, out of the perimeter about 20%, but they weren't bothered by that when it was put there, and I didn't put it there. And by the way, stop with that. Go back and look at it. The city of Imperial was 1,000 feet from the homes. They're the ones that pushed me to this side because they wouldn't do their jobs.
Okay, so Jake Tyson has another question about CEQA, but I think he's being repetitive right now.
Yeah.
Sean Wilcox says
he can read the record. The record's all available online. It's publicly. So, but I mean, look, I appreciate the questions, Jake. I'm not bothered by them. In fact, I really like the fact that we do this. We should do this pretty regularly.
Yeah,
he says, well, I'm just gonna read what he said. I'll just read what he said. So,
well, you can show it.
Yeah, he says, once again, which specific CEQA exemption is claimed in the notice of exemption? And where is the substantial evidence in the record showing that all requirements of that exemptions are met?
Okay, so the CEQA exemption was the ministerial exemption. There's two code provisions. I don't know them off the top of my head. And then the requirement that they were met was the fact that the grading permit complied. I mean, think about this. You're challenging a grading permit. I mean, really? I mean, this is the way this is going to move forward. I mean, it's a pretty ministerial process. You get them all the time. So the notice is in there was when they approved the grading permit. So they approved the grading permit. They filed a notice of exemption. You guys got notice. And then you attacked it, but you didn't attack it on what it was. You attacked it by saying requires rezoning. Those are lies, and that's not really how you should do business. If you challenge it, you should challenge it. In my opinion, if you guys want environmental comments, which a lot of you have been on, well, let's address those. Find out which other one is missing and address those, because we already have done a bunch, and we put all our stuff online. So we are doing transparency versus what the other people are saying.
So Sean tells Tyson, you've been told a dozen times already. And then Annette says it's in Title 9 Land Use Ordinance.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised that my legal one didn't have it in there in the county. That's
Tyson says again, has the Board of Supervisors signed an NDA with you?
I found it.
You got it.
All right, so let me go find it here. Give me a second. Okay. All right, so now let me share this with you. All right, so I'll share.
I remember that email.
Images. All right. I don't know if I'm doing it right. Did this come up? Am I showing the letter?
No. So in the StreamYard, right at the bottom of the screen, there's the mic, there's the video icon, and then there's like a little screen with a plus sign in the middle.
Yeah, just hit the plus sign.
Yeah, you hit the plus sign, but nothing.
And then you look for the image that you're trying to show.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, let's go try to do that then again.
So, yeah, it's gonna have slides and PDFs, extra camera, video file, image file, or share screen.
I have no idea. I mean, on one side I have it, and then on the other side I don't. So I don't know what's going on here.
Are all of those monitors connected? Or?
Yeah. Okay, let me try this.
Do you want to email it to me? Then I'll share it.
Yeah. Let's do that.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. All right, Carlos.
Yeah.
All right,
take a look. All keep civil in the chat.
All right, Carlos, did you get it?
Okay, I'm looking for it here. I should be getting it any moment now.
And thank you, Annette, for letting us know that.
Okay, got it here. Okay, let me share it right now with you guys here.
You know what? I was wanting to have debates like this with especially what is a good share of opponents. I'm glad we're doing this.
Yeah,
Jake, I appreciate your questions, and I honestly, I really think that if you look at the record fairly and objectively, you'll see that this is there and it's ministerial, and that's that.
This is the question he had. You could zoom in a little bit.
Can you see my screen?
Yeah, zoom in a little bit.
So if you look down there, you'll see that it's a permitted use, is what it concludes.
Can you zoom in a bit?
Yeah, let me. Okay, give me 1 second here. Sharing. Okay, zoom in. Let me know when to stop.
Right there.
Stop right there. You'll see it has been determined that the proposed project would be, okay, go down.
Okay, just tell me when to stop.
Go down the third paragraph. Okay, stop. Go back up a little bit. Specifically, pursuant to so-and-so, a data center is a permitted use within the M1 light industrial zoning district. Ancillary components directly incidental to the primary data center operations, such as the long-term power backup generators, electrical substations, gen-tie lines, short-term power backup energy storage system, the BESS, water treatment skid, and cooling yard are likewise considered permitted uses within the M1 zone. What they are is the ancillary uses. So right there, they're telling you their determination, September 4th, was that the uses are permitted because they're reading their code correctly. And by the way, that letter, which was also given to the city of Imperial, attaches all the code provisions with it.
Okay. Stop sharing this. That's enough for this.
Yeah, that's good enough.
If
Okay.
people, I think we can email it to
No,
people.
no, I've not required an NDA from anybody.
Yeah.
So that you can release anything with this. I've been pretty open on my stuff too.
So, okay then. Sean Wilcock, don't be mad. Just explain it. Marita says. Rob Hollinger says, I'm only here to represent the homes here. They should not be subject to this data center.
Well, Rob, I understand that's your position, but you purchased land next to industrial zone land, which has permitted uses for this. So nobody's subjecting anything to anything. This is private land, which has private rights. So the data center's there. What I would suggest is whatever issues you have, higher walls, more landscaping, noise, let's talk about those and reach agreement on what things you want, because we could put it in for the approved plan so it becomes part of the project. That's what my recommendation would be that we should do. The idea that you don't want it, again, you bought land that was there, zone industrial. Personally, what should have happened is when the city of Imperial had the homes, they should have had a transition from the industrial, which was there before you guys, and then put buffers in between. They didn't do that. That would have been proper to have something in between. But, you know, I have to live with that now. The industrial zone permits us there, and it requires very minimal things. I'm doing way above what's required. For example, it has a 6-foot wall. I'm willing to do a 10-foot wall. We have landscaping. The separation, the setback is like 5-10 feet. You're an engineer, so you know this. We actually are well over that by about 125, et cetera. We want to be good neighbors, but the data center's coming because it's ministerial. So figure out how we can meet those things, look at those specifics, and tell me what you want, and we'll keep doing it. And look, I'll be here. I'm not going anywhere. I love that area. And if in the future you see more stuff, let me know. We'll go in there and work on those too. But it's coming.
So Sean says, technically, public agencies can sign NDAs.
There's another question about NDAs.
I don't know, but I've seen online where some of them have done that. To me, it's crazy. On my end, I have no NDAs with anybody. You know, I control the permits, I control the land, and so we're good. But I agree with you. I think it's kind of troubling that some of them would do that. Nobody's asked me here, and nobody did do that here.
Okay, Kelly, this is
We just answered that.
Yeah, reverting back to SQL. Well, that's I'm just gonna read it even though it's redundant.
No, I got what Kelly's saying. Yeah. Kelly, the problem with your statement is that, and this is the idea that's very fundamentally troubling to me, is the city of Imperial, to me, couldn't look like they were fumbling around with their own codes. The idea that they get to go tell the county what to do is really sad. Here's why. The county has their own codes, and their codes are that the planning department makes this decision. So this September 4th letter, by the way. They made that decision. Has to be somebody who's going to be the umpire. They're the umpire, and they've agreed with me that it's there. The city of Imperial didn't want to. I think they were wrong, but I let it go. Now they have a lawsuit to face over that mess. But the fact is, it's the law that's applied, and somebody's got to do it, and the county did. And by the way, your September 4th letter, the appeal time on that one was 10 days. That's long lapse. So, but by the way, even if you go to court like we are, the court is going to look at the people that are administering this, in this case, the county planning department, and rely on them. They're not going to look with other people that have different agendas. So in this case, they approved it, and that was the proper decision, and that was proper within their codes. So the idea that some people don't like it, operatives of others, you know, that doesn't mean anything. That's not how it works. So when you guys keep telling me that's not how it works, yeah, I kind of think I got you on that one. I do know how it works, and you're wrong on that one.
Okay, so there's another question about NDAs. This is time from Leah. I believe you mentioned you have an NDA with Google, and ID mentioned in the past you have an NDA with you. Do you have an NDA with the Board of Supervisors? You already answered that.
Well, first off, Leah, to my knowledge, I don't have an NDA with IID. I have emails with them and say release everything. And I've already repeated, I don't have one with the Board of Supervisors. So my issues with Google is that it's irrelevant. Google isn't the one spending the money, it's me. And the hyperscalers aren't the ones that believe in Imperial County. That's me. I'm the guy that spent the money and the time to do this because I believe in that area and I believe this can be done. And I believe in the end, one of the hyperscalers will be there. I know who's interested. The problem is is that what we're doing is we're putting up red flags right now that are not even honest. The idea that an industrial land needs rezoning, that's not honest. That's not the way cities should operate. So that's something that required the lawsuit, and I'm willing to withdraw it if those people will pay their own bills, the individuals.
Okay, so here we have Jake Tyson again talking about.
This is disingenuous right here. I mean, he's moving the goalpost now. First it was CEQA.
Well, I think we've already answered this.
Yeah.
This will be decided, Jake. This will be decided by the judge. Your idea that a data center is not a data center, again, I will repeat what I said. First off, you now have a letter from the county whose regulatory authority says it is. Then if you look up their rules, you'll find out they're the ones that make that decision. Then you look up the rules further, you'll find out it's appealable, which hasn't been appealed. Further, when you look up the law, you'll find out that the courts defer to the people who are regulating the rules. Now, I've said this to you about 10 times. So you're not hearing it, which I get it. Thank you, Mr. Operative.
Okay, Marito Hurtado says that's transparency. I guess the fact that you're here talking or answering questions. Jake Tyson says, so what do you have to say about the families and the kids who are now speaking out? Just move it. Just move it.
Jake, you're lost, my friend. What do I have to say with it? It's fine. You're looking for heavy emotional stuff. Let's focus on facts for a second.
Yeah, okay.
You're coming up and you're saying, oh, wait a minute. There's, what do you call it? Those, the Kinder Morgan. You got tanks nearby. And then on the other breath, you're saying you have homes nearby. Then on the other breath, you're saying that you have schools nearby. It's zone industrial. Yeah. Look at the area. It's by railroads and high voltage lines. This is where industrial generally is. So the idea that somebody's going to say something, I'm going to go, oh my God, I got to quit. That's not how it works.
Okay, so if I think is this also redundant? Why try to build?
No. Claudia has a good question, but the problem is factually, Claudia. Here's the facts. The facts is when you look at industrial land in Imperial County, which is what I did, you're going to find there's not a lot. My recollection was, except for the Mesquite Lake, which was too far from the actual utilities, you had about 7 parcels, and I tried to purchase all the ones that I could. So your idea would be that I go way out somewhere and then put it there. I agree with you. Here's the bad news. The likely part is that that land would be agricultural. So then I would require rezoning. Then you're left with the CEQA issues and all that. So I'm not the one that decided the land was industrial. This was decided 45 years ago. They built the homes nearby. I don't see any schools next to me or parks next to me. What I see next to me is this. I see a little bit of a shanty and the 5 acres in the corner, and I see a metal building that's used industrially. On the opposite side, I also see then a government building that's used for the Border Patrol. On the opposite end, I see railroads, and then I got high power lines on the backside. Down on the back corner, we have some homes that are there. So I'm not interjecting myself in the neighborhood. I'm using industrial land that's been there forever. If you have a problem with that, go to the city of Imperial, because the first project was 1,000 feet away. They're the ones that pushed you there. So that's what it is. And I'm not building next to it. If I was rezoning, I would agree. These are just emotional issues that don't do anything. And look, I wish I could go further out. But if you study the industrial land in Imperial County, I don't know the percentage, but my guess is it would be 1% of 1%. It's really low. I only found about 7 parcels when I was looking at it, and I tried to purchase all the ones that I could.
Okay, so Kelly, there's a good question. If the projected long-term benefits fall short, who bears the financial and environmental risk?
What are we talking about the long-term benefits? Long-term benefits is this building will pay taxes. If there's environmental issues, these are people that are spending $10 billion on a project. You think that they're going to walk away from that and then just impose environmental risk? What are the environmental risks? You have the air department that's going to, APCD, that's going to regulate the air. The sound is going to be regulated by the county. So traffic is going to be regulated by those people. Everybody's out there. IAD regulates the electricity. Why don't you let the people do the jobs that they've been hired to do and expect them to do it? If they fall short, then you sue them at that time, because then you have issues that you could point to.
Okay, Claudia, you want to read that one, Joseph?
Yeah. Is it only about monetary gain for and others in your inner circle at the expense of a community?
There's no expense to the community, Claudia. They're actually tremendous benefit to the community, the taxes and the environmental benefits. So I get the idea about trying to spin it the other way, another operative in my view, and that's not what happens.
Robbie G says, you want to read that one too, Joseph?
Yeah. Why are you taking advantage of that fact? I feel if you really cared about being a good neighbor, you would have chosen another part of the county. But you know that you were able to skirt CEQA by going through this avenue. This is one of those situations that it's illegal, but is it morally right? You're pretty much telling them, too bad, too sad. So sad.
Yeah, I'm saying that it's morally right. What I'm saying is that's the law. It's industrial. And by the way, if I didn't do it, what do you think is going to happen there? Concrete asphalt plant or something else? So, move on. It's a non-issue for me. You could go for somebody else on the emotions. I've already spent a lot of money and a lot of time down there. My first site was the one with Imperial, and the city couldn't do their job.
Given that public trust is central to projects of this scale, how should decision makers weigh your prior litigation and regulatory history when assessing assurances that project will comply with CEQA and other laws? Well, you know that Comite is also in a lawsuit, so it's like you can say that about anybody.
Jake, I'm not going to be the one building it. I've already said that. I'm the guy just packaging it. You're going to have enormously wealthy people that are going to build it. And as far as the prior litigation, take a look at it. You should run scared because I know what I'm doing. I could take on the federal government, the state government, U.S. attorneys, criminal courts. I'm afraid of nothing, and I'm here to stay.
Okay, you want to read this next one, Joseph?
Yeah. Is this only about monetary gain for you and your inner circle, disregarding the safety of the community as a whole?
I think I answered that one from.
Well, no, what happened?
I already answered that one.
Okay. Is this Peter Rodriguez?
This is a project is money grab through lawsuit.
Well, Peter, actually, Peter, I do have an answer for you. You should look at what I've written because that's not accurate. First off, I didn't sue. I moved next door, even though I had rights that were violated by the city of Imperial. When I moved next door, the bully chased me. And when they chased me, they violated my rights a second time. And then they filed a sham lawsuit to protect it. So at some part, I said, enough is enough. Read my public disclosures on the news and you'll see that. And by the way, I've also put out a test for the others. If these people who caused this are willing to pay for their own fees, that's the ones you should be focused on. I'll be happy to dismiss the city. So there's no lawsuit for them. It's not a money grab.
Just okay, so we're transparent. Yeah, we're all transparent in this. Peter Rodriguez is actually related to someone on Board of Supervisors and an IED. So, just
I mean, okay, I mean, one thing I've learned about them, there's a lot of connections to people.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of interconnections everywhere.
Okay, if there's a question that you think is repetitive or you already answered, just let us know. You want to read this next one?
Can you identify which long-term costs associated to this project, such as grid upgrades, water treatment, road wear, fire protection, air monitoring, or emergency services will be fully borne by the developer versus shifted to public?
Actually, Jake, all of them. We're not asking the public to pick up anything. The grid upgrades, we've already committed to upgrading the, I think it's the R line, the 92 kV line. The water treatment, there's tons of stuff for me out there that we're willing to do the upgrades for it. We've already paid for the engineering and then yearly treatment. The road wear, I mean, we pay for whatever it is to increase the width of the roads. The fire protection, again, we're paying $30 million in taxes per year. The air monitoring is done by APCD, and then the emergency services, I assume you're back to referencing the fire. So those are all paid for. Well, besides the $30 million in taxes, by the way. By the way, to get an idea what this actually means, the total assessed value of the real estate in Imperial County is about $18 billion. In the city of Imperial is 1.9. This project would have dwarfed that. It would have doubled the tax base for everybody. So, but anyways, besides all that, there is no upgrades that are covered by the others, and that's already being decided by all of them that are there. Good question, though, Jake. Good question.
Respectfully, concerns about children's health and air quality are not emotional.
Yeah, Kelly, I get it. But didn't we already do our studies to do that? Didn't they come back to say everything was within the lowest limits that are possible? So you turn around and you say, well, there's something more. Well, I don't know. Then why hire the people at APCD? Let the people do their jobs.
Sebastian, let's address for folks why citing an appropriately zoned locations. Let them know why a CUP or zone change would not be ministerial, which opens up development to extortion by groups like CCV, Comite.
Thank you, Sean. So what happens is when you do projects, you have two ways. You have the one way, which is pretty much where the staff reviews it, and you have the other way where you got to go to the public legislature, in this case, the Board of Supervisors or the City Council, and ask to change things. When you ask to change things, like what's called a conditional use permit, which means that there's much more discretion or a rezoning, those things are, maybe they'll do it, maybe they won't. As a developer, if you lose those, you're toast. You know, you don't really get to shift those. The ministerial, it's in your favor. So when I learned this early on, I learned to focus on the ones that were going to be in my favor, not the ones that are not. Not that I haven't done rezonings, but if you go for a rezoning and you don't get it, tough luck, you move on. The reason the extortion starts is California's got a weirdness that is really, they're pulling away from because it hasn't helped. The intention of CEQA was to require notice of environmental impacts and for people to mitigate them. Good comments, good, makes sense. What ended up happening was over the years, people would sue under CEQA, and then they would spend years just debating on what is the administrative record. And then what the California courts did, which is really bad, is they allowed the environmentalists that were suing under CEQA to drop the lawsuit in turn for money that they could keep. Now that was really odd because they're supposed to be there for the public good. In 2022, that changed somewhat. So this is the extortion that's out there. And there's a lot of horror stories about this, about how some of them have had to go through many. I mean, I knew CEQA was expensive and it didn't really produce anything. So what we did when we started was we said, well, let's just do all the environmental stuff we got to do. There's a ton of my emails that were released in the lawsuit where I'm saying that to the city of Imperial. So we did all of that. But the reason for it is that the biggest part about CEQA wasn't so much about what is the environment, because most of the lawsuits aren't about the environment. They're about stopping you about the record. And by the way, this case started that way too, where they were going to play with the record. And we walked in and said, no. You have a sham lawsuit. Let's just go right to court right away. And I next day I was ready for it. It's taken about a month to play with that. So I hope I've answered it. The bottom line is that CEQA's process has been abused by the environmentalists and it's given them a bad name. Like to my knowledge, I'll give you a great example. There's an article sometime last year around mid-year where Luis Olmedo and CBC was trying to get money from CTR, the people that were doing the Hell's Kitchen geothermal. And the request was something like 2.5 million a year for the next 30 years. To my shock, was Luis was actually admitting he did this.
Yep.
And in there, he was saying is, well, there's a lot of poor people who are going to use it for the poor. Okay, yep. So let's analyze that. He's saying, I'm going to take money from you and you want to use it for a public good to give to the poor. Here's the problem with that. If the county had said, we'll give you the geothermal, but we want money in our case for the poor, they couldn't do that. There would be no connection between A and B. So for example, they could mitigate what happens with the geothermal, like say, for example, requiring water cleanup or other things, but not something like poverty to add to it. They could do that, maybe it's a tax, but you couldn't do it that way. So the problem that I saw was, this was what I call out and out plan of extortion. And I've dealt with this over the years successfully because that's what it was. It was extortion. We're going to take money from you. And it's not based on your environmental impact. It's based on the money you're making. To me, that was kind of like hideous. I was shocked when I read that he had confidence. Then when I saw that, I called some of the other attorneys that deal with this and said, this is kind of common around here. And I learned it kind of is. Then as I dealt further with it, I realized that the state action component changes things. That's the issue that I'll try to do. So it's not healthy for the developers. And again, you don't have to look at me saying this. The state of California said this last summer. They said CEQA was abused, so we're going to pull back.
Risk, there's an expense to the community like the rest. You have this and that, but low noise issues still not studied.
Rob, I agree with you. And I've said we're going to study it and then we'll address it. I've already said that. because I don't know the answer to that question. That's one I don't know because it's in the process of studying.
Why do you think so many communities in the United States are fighting back against data centers? Not one city is happy with the outcome and higher costs.
Well, first off, I think that's flatly incorrect as a statement. And I've already addressed why the other ones are there. Some of them have too many, and the ones that rezones are there. The idea that not one city likes it, there's about 5,000 of them in California. Excuse me, in the United States, a little bit less. The most in the world, so that's not accurate.
I think also it has to do with the current administration wanting to do more in factories, being able to sustain our own batteries and that kind of stuff to be able to make them here. I mean, look what happened during COVID. We had to outsource everything to China, and this administration is wanting to bring everything back to the United States. And as you can see, the Democrats do not like anything Trump does. So that's partly why.
I'm not sure what this one's asking me for.
Yeah, this was happening during last few years, but that was during the school board. The school board approved that one.
I wouldn't know how to answer it because I don't know.
Yeah, those are like what 5G towers that they're talking about.
Yeah.
Because I think Tony, I thought I saw a comment on Facebook that he put on Facebook, something about radiation coming out from the data centers, and it's gonna
EV chargers also. I mean, there's all kinds of technology does as well.
It's gonna fry people.
Guys, I think this is wonderful. I don't know what your plan was to go, but we should do this like very regularly.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah. I mean, I thought we were gonna be here for 30 minutes. You know.
Yeah, I think this is really good. I appreciate you doing this because I do want to talk to the people there, and I am certain that some of them don't believe my answers or think otherwise. But look, I think the ministerial stuff, that's a dead herring. Look, I saw good comments about the low noise, which we're exploring to find out more about. And I don't know. I mean, I'm assuming it depends on how they do the buildings and other things. Which again, you're not going to spend $10 billion and say, let's do the noise.
So Tony here says too much high kilowatt energy drain. These power amps need water to cool down. The Democrats in California are shutting Chevron refineries by forcing emission standards.
I was fortunate that the hyperscaler that's working with me from day one was very sensitive to the environment. So we went for reclaimed water right away. If you look at the emails that I put it on the lawsuit, the 43 emails, I think in the very, very, very first meeting, we're talking about reclaimed water. The next email, which I think is Exhibit 2, we're talking about reclaimed water. We did that from the beginning. And we have other ways to also get there. But part of it is, there's ways to be environmentally friendly. It takes work and it takes money. These people are willing to spend it. I mean, we were doing 10 million in upgrades at the city of Imperial, 10 million to El Centro. We were going to pay 3 million total, split that 1.5 each. And then we were going to send 5.25 million gallons clean water to the Salton Sea. I mean, that's a win-win for society. It's environmentally friendly. It helps the Salton Sea. How that gets there, you got me.
Okay, Jake Tyson has another comment. Should I put it up?
How does your investment substitute CEQA's duty to protect public health and safety? CEQA was signed into law in Ronald Reagan 1970. Why don't you follow the law? Just because it was given ministerial exemption last year does not make it exempt from breaking CEQA California law. The law will decide this, not the lawyer who makes false claims.
Look, we could be done with Jake. We can't. Look, guys, I'm pretty generous with my time, but I'm not going to sit there and keep answering the same question.
Yeah,
By the way, we're already in court. We're already in court. If Mr. Jake is correct, they're going to win. If he's incorrect, they're going to lose and then pay the bill. And I'm very confident in my position. I'll put my money where my mouth is.
Okay, so Tony says AI chat really messed me up. I look up info in books. He says, what do you think about 5G towers?
About what?
I
really don't know anything about them.
Okay, perfect. Okay, I think, I mean, it seems like Rob says it's all good until it's not. Okay.
Thank everybody for coming in. We have one more.
Sean?
Let's talk about how the profits of energy sales with providing funding for necessary infrastructure upgrades instead of being on the backs of ratepayers.
Thank you, Sean. So one of the things that's going to happen with this project is when you have the 330 megawatts that you're there, what it's going to do is it's going to prompt the geothermal people or others like the solar and the battery people to produce energy to sell to you. So one of the problems with Imperial Valley is their energy that they're producing is being exported. Eugenio, the board person, had that in a couple days ago with the BlackRock one, that is being exported. This one keeps it in-house. So what it'll do, Sean, great question, is what it'll do is it'll prompt the geothermal people to produce geothermal, CTR and others. When you produce geothermal, then you're also going to get to some lithium. And by the way, lithium is going to really be needed because right now China's got a stranglehold on all these materials. And China makes a move on Taiwan. We're going to be down there, not we, the government is going to be down there because this is going to be really, really important for our country. So it's going to happen. If we do it through the data center route, it ends up going where there's multiple benefits. The geothermal starts because they're supplying it to you. That helps out with the lithium and on and on and on. And so you start getting benefits. I know a lot of people will say things like, well, you know, we had that with solar and we had it with other things. I get it. But unlike solar, which had to get changes in the law, I didn't ask for changes in the law. It's what's there. When I went in to do the load that I have, the 330, I went in with studies. I hired powers engineers. Then we did 3 of them with IID. We didn't do anything that was inventive. All along, many people that I met, like the IID staff and others, were very supportive because they could see the immense benefit for the area. But it's not a complete solution. But adding $10 billion and then having the tax, the work from the construction period, and then the future, all those things are a good plus in the right direction, which does a great impact. I mean, think about like in the city of Imperial, when you think about it, those people could have went out to the public and say, hey, what do you think of this one? They didn't. And then they try to sandbag you later. But if you think about Imperial, there's not a lot of industry down there that I see. You know, again, that's the whole point about there's not a lot of industrial land in the area. So there's a lot of agricultural. So I don't know how 75 acres taken out of the millions of acres is going to really go like, oh my God, we got to stop this. Look what happened. So I think Sean has a really good comment, which is, in my belief, which is that all of this development is going to propel a whole bunch more down the road in different ways. And, you know, and again, when you're looking at a community that has some losses going on now from agricultural, this is a big win. Last thing I would say, in my opinion, there's few areas in California that could do this, not because of poverty, because of how you're located. This area has the geothermal, it has the solar, it has the batteries, it could do this. And instead of jumping on board and saying we can do something here that only we can do and the other ones cannot, to me, that's what we should be saying. And, you know, let's get a win for Imperial County, not a loss with false lawsuits. So let's get a win. This is a win. It produces a lot. Yeah, some questions are going to be there, but look, these people aren't going to spend $10 billion and say, screw everybody else. This is going to be a community effort, but it's not going to be done by CEQA. CEQA is being done to screw you. That thing will go toast if that happens. So, and by the way, again, we're talking about rights. What rights do we have, right? I mean, we're using the laws that exist. So, Sean, thank you. Great question. And I think it'll have a lot of collateral benefits going down the road, immense benefits.
Okay. I think that, I mean,
Wrap up, or we have time for one
good
more?
with it?
You're at an hour and 30 minutes. We're hitting the end.
Yeah, no.
I think that's good for the first show. I mean, we could continue doing this, like you said, answering questions.
We can do this again, guys.
Let's still ask people to add comments in, so that way for the next one, if we want to do another one, we have a lot of comments ready to go to be answered.
Well, first off, not if. We are definitely going to do another one. We should do this regularly.
Okay. Sounds good to me. I'm ready.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everybody.
For writing in and commenting.
Thank you, Joseph. Much appreciated.
Thank you. Appreciate it.